Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Mudire Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamastoke Tirbhavati Naistaki. Okay, so we're studying from Canto 2, Chapter 1, and today's verse is number 24. Visheshastasya dehoyam stavishtascha staviyasam yatredam vyajate vishvam bhutam bhavyam bhavachcha sat. Vishesha, personal. Tasya, his. Deha, body. Avyam, this. Stavi, staham. Grossly, material. Cha, and. Stavi yasam, of all matter. Yatra, wherein. Idam, all these phenomena. Vyajate, is experienced. Vishwam, universe. Bhutam, past. Bhavyam, future. Bhavat, present. Cha, and. Sat, resultant. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is a personal body of the Absolute Truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. Purport. Would anyone like to read the purport? Again, someone who hasn't read before or someone who usually doesn't read, it'll be nice to hear from you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who it was. So one of you, please. I could hear two voices.
I can read, Prabhu.
Yes, please go ahead.
Anything either material or spiritual is but an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 13.13, the omnipotent Lord has his transcendental eyes, heads, and other bodily parts distributed everywhere. He can see, hear, touch, or manifest himself anywhere and everywhere, for he is present everywhere as the super soul of all infinitesimal souls, although he has his particular abode in the absolute world. The relative world is also his phenomenal representation because it is nothing but an expansion of his transcendental energy. Although he is in his abode, his energy is distributed everywhere, just as the sun is localized as well as expanded everywhere. Since the rays of the sun, being non-different from the sun, are accepted as expansions of the sun disk. In the Vishnu Puran 1.22.52, it is said that as fire expands its rays and heat from one place, similarly the Supreme Spirit, the personality of Godhead, expands himself by his manifold energy everywhere and anywhere. The phenomenal manifestation of the gigantic universe is only a part of his Virat body. Less intelligent men cannot conceive of the transcendental, all-spiritual form of the Lord, but they are astounded by his different energies, just as the aborigines are struck with wonder by the manifestation of lightning, a gigantic mountain, or a hugely expanded banyan tree. The aborigines praise the strength of the tiger and the elephant because of their superior energy and strength. The asuras cannot recognize the existence of the Lord, although there are vivid descriptions of the Lord in the revealed scriptures. Although the Lord incarnates and exhibits his uncommon strength and energy, and although he is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by learned scholars and saints, like Vyasadeva, Narada, Asita, and Devala in the past, and by Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, as also by the Acharyas like Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhava, and Lord Sri Chaitanya in the modern age. The Asuras do not accept any evidential proof from the revealed scriptures, nor do they recognize the authority of the great Acharyas. They want to see with their own eyes at once. Therefore, they can see the gigantic body of the Lord as Virat, which will answer their challenge. And since they are accustomed to paying homage to superior material strength like that of the tiger, elephant, and lightning, they can offer respect to the Virat Roop. Lord Krishna, by the request of Arjuna, exhibited his Virat Roop for the Asuras. A pure devotee of the Lord, being unaccustomed to looking into such a mundane, gigantic form of the Lord, requires special vision for the purpose. The Lord therefore favored Arjuna with special vision for looking into his Virat Roop, which is described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. This Virat Roop of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjun, but for that unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord, so misled the general mass of people. For them, the indication is that one should ask the chief incarnation to exhibit his Virat Roop and thus be established as an incarnation. The Virat Roop manifestation of the Lord is simultaneously a challenge to the atheist and a favor for the Asuras, who can think of the Lord as Virat and thus gradually cleanse the dirty things from their hearts in order to become qualified to actually see the transcendental form of the Lord in the near future. This is a favor of the all-merciful Lord to the atheist and the gross materialists. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Mama Gyanathimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guru Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravananda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Thank you everyone for joining. So as I can see, a few new people have joined. So we're starting from Canto 2, chapter 1, verse number 24. And the Virat Swarup is described here. And Prabhupada goes into some detail in explaining the Mayavadis, the Asuras, and what they worship and why Arjuna was shown the Virat Swarup. So we'll go through some of these points. I've got 2 or 3 main aspects that I want to sort of try and focus on. Obviously, there are a lot of different ones, but that Prabhupada has highlighted. 2 or 3 sort of theme comes through from this purport that Prabhupada has given us. So we see that anything that is material or spiritual is an expansion of the energy of Krishna, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Because even though Krishna is situated in his abode, his energy, we can see, are distributed everywhere. As Prabhupada mentions in the purport, as the sun, right, is expanded. We can see the rays, we can touch and feel, we can feel the rays everywhere. But still, it is non-different from the sun. Right? But it is explained that less intelligent men cannot conceive the idea of the Lord being all spiritual and that he is absolutely the source of everything. But at the same time, these less intelligent men, they are astounded when they see some of his material energies, or some of his different energies, so to speak. So Prabhupada mentions the word Asura in the purport. He says, Asuras cannot recognize the existence of the Lord. They want to see with their own eyes at once. Therefore, they can see the gigantic form of the Lord as Virat Swarup. So basically it says, Prabhupada is trying to say that the Asuras cannot recognize the existence of the Lord, although there are so many descriptions in our scriptures. Even though we see all these incarnations, Lord, with all his pastimes, he shows us all his different strengths, his different energies. But still, the Asuras won't recognize him as Lord. They do not even recognize any of the scriptures. Right? There are proof given in the scriptures. So many different proofs are given, but they don't want to recognize it. Even acharyas, we've got so many acharyas who validate the existence of the Lord through various different means, but still the Asuras will not accept it. Right? They want to see everything with their own eyes, as we saw in some of us went for the movie Mahavatar Narsimha. You see all the Asuras, they didn't want to recognize any existence of Lord at all. They thought that they are the be all and end all. They are more powerful than the Lord themselves. Therefore, but Krishna has a way for everyone. Yeah? At the end of the day, everyone is part and parcel of Krishna, and he's got his way of bringing everyone back to him. And therefore, you can see this gigantic body as the Virat Rupa, Virat Swarupa, which will answer all the arguments put forward by the so-called Mayavadis or so-called all the Asuras, because these Asuras and these Mayavadis, they are very used to recognizing the material energy. Right? Prabhupada mentioned in the purport about tiger, elephant, and lightning. They will see that and they will think, oh, wow. They will get enamored by these energies. But they won't associate that with the Lord some way or another. They will deny the existence of the Lord. So, in the purport again, Prabhupada mentions that Lord Krishna, by the request of Arjuna, exhibited his Virat Rupa for the Asuras. A pure devotee of the Lord, being unaccustomed to looking into such a mundane gigantic form of the Lord, requires special vision for that purpose. We see in Bhagavad Gita, verse 11.8, Na tu mam sakyase drishtam anenaiva swachakshusha divyam dadami te chakshu pasya me yogam aishwaram. But you cannot see me with your present eyes. Therefore, I give you divine eyes. Behold my mystic opulence. So, a pure devotee does not like to see Krishna in any form except the loving form, which is this two hands. But the Lord gave Arjuna the power to see his universal form because he knew that Arjuna did not want to particularly see it, but he wanted to do it he wanted to set a precedence for people who recognize the material energy more, the gigantic forms, right? They see as again the examples of tiger, lightning, and elephant. So the fact is that us devotees, we are not concerned with seeing the Virat Swarup. But Arjuna wanted to see it to substantiate Krishna's statements so that in the future, people could understand that Krishna not only theoretically or philosophically presented himself as a supreme, but actually presented himself as this Virat Swarup, that everything is within him, to Arjuna. So the Virat Rupa of the men was especially of the Lord was especially manifested not for the benefit of Arjuna, but for the unintelligent class of men who accept anyone and everyone as an incarnation of the Lord, because they are misled. They want to mislead the general mass. We've seen so many examples, especially in India recently, of these godmen, they call it, quote unquote, who want to mislead the general mass for their own personal benefit. So that's why Lord shows this form. So Krishna then also understands that Arjuna wanted to see this universal form to set an example for the future, because there would be many imposters. The people, therefore, should be careful of one who claims to be Krishna, should be prepared to show his universal form to confirm his claim to the people, Prabhupada says. So, the Virat Swarup manifestation of the Lord is a challenge to the atheist and also a favor at the same time. Right? It's a challenge, also a favor. Who think of the Lord as Virat Swarup. Thus, because when they see the favor, because when they see the Virat Swarup, gradually it starts to cleanse them. Slowly, their heart becomes qualified, purified. So this is a favor of Krishna to the atheist and the materialist. And Srila Prabhupada says that this is that he's reaching out to the atheists and the Mayavadis by doing this. It's a very clear delineation of them. Now, there is, while I was researching for this, there is, I also learned something. There's a majority of the people, they say, are empiricists. Now, empiricism is a belief that you don't believe anything unless you experience it. Right? So very simply, by our sensory experience, you want to understand something. But if you don't sense it or perceive it, you're not going to believe it. Right? So in other words, a lot of the Mayavadis, a lot of the Asuras, if they don't experience it, they don't see something, or they are not going to believe the existence of the Lord. Now, as we know, yes, there is a lot of faith, but also there is a lot of evidence, as I mentioned earlier, from the scriptures. We follow the acharyas and so on. But these Asuras do not want to believe that. They want to perceive it by their own eyes, by their own senses, and so on. So, in other words, another way to explain it, if say 3,000 years ago or 300 years ago even, if we said that these electromagnetic waves that we use for for our mobiles and so on to communicate, and we say that we can communicate from one part of the world to another, no one was going to believe it. If we said that we're going to fly in the sky like birds, in other words, traveling in aeroplanes, which the scientists and the researchers have sort of mimicked the bird in that way, right? If we said that a few hundred years ago, no one was going to believe us. But there is evidence of that. But now that we see it, we believe it, right? So these empiricists, they don't believe in it until they actually see it. So this is a strategy to preach to these atheists, the Mayavadis, impersonalists, by showing of Krishna's strategy to show them the universal form. Right? So Arjuna was shown the Virat Swarup for this particular purpose. Everything we see in this world is a combination of matter and spirit. Especially living is a combination of matter and spirit. Obviously, spirit in the form of Jiva and Paramatma within them. So we see that it's described in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 11 that this strategy of preaching to the empiricist, and the atheist, because they can relate to things like, if they say, it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita chapter 11 that the mountains are the bones of Krishna. Ocean is like his belly. The river are his veins. Sun and moon are each of his eyes. Trees are like the hair. The air is his breath, and so on. Right. So when we tell these Mayavadis, or when we tell these impersonalists, like the hair are the trees, right? And then they see this, when they see these explanations, air is his breath, the mountain are his bone, and so on. The rivers are his veins. Then they slowly start to see that there is something that they can see, that they can relate to, right? The trees, they can see that the air, they can feel, and so on, right? Because, say, Mayavadis accept that they believe in the Brahman, right? But they deny the personal form of the Lord. But by looking at the personality of the Virat Swarup, they see there is some sort of energy behind it. Even the same way with the empiricists, they are seeing the breath and the air and the mountains and the rivers and so on. So they can see that there is a visible proof. Right? So slowly that block that they have in their mind is being eradicated. If you take modern day example of scientists, studying, you see so many people who study space. They are studying the galaxies, black hole, and all the other things. Now, when they come up with some research, we read about it in schools, in studies, or even on news or something like that, that we believe them. Right? We believe them. Oh yes, it exists. It exists. Something is there. So like that, when the universal form is there, right, we can see that it is there. We can see that the two eyes are like sun and moon. We can see that. So there is this great pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, where he's explaining to Prakashananda Saraswati. So this was when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met the sannyasis, the Mayavadi sannyasis in Banaras. So he was, after he took sannyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to Banaras and he was visiting his disciples, Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar Acharya, who were his great disciples, great followers. But during those times, the city of Banaras was very much dominated by the Mayavadi sannyasis, who were followers of Shankaracharya during those days. Now, they used to say that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is a sannyasi, but he doesn't study the scriptures. He only sings, dances like a madman, along with his sentimental associates, right? And a lot of other things were said about him. But his devotees, who were his followers, they were very hurt by all the criticisms that these Mayavadi sannyasis were throwing at Lord Chaitanya. But he didn't too much. He kept on doing what he was doing. But then, through some divine arrangement, a Brahmana invited Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the gathering of Mayavadi sannyasis, and where their leader of the Mayavadi sannyasis, Prakashananda Saraswati, was also there. So when he arrived, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu humbly sat on the foot washing area instead of where all the other sannyasis were sitting. So in the past, there were no footwear. So all the sannyasis, everyone used to walk anywhere they go. So there is a foot washing area when they enter some place. So that's where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to sit. And everyone was astounded. Sannyasi like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is sitting there. So they were already surprised by his humility. And then Prakashananda Saraswati saw that, and he himself lifted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he gave him a seat along with the other sannyasis there. So then they had like a debate, right? So sannyasis, these Mayavadi sannyasis, were going and giving and saying all of these things to, like, say, the example I gave earlier, that you don't study the scriptures. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to the sannyasis, that my spiritual master considered me as a fool. He told me that I should simply chant Hare Krishna because the holy names are the essence of all Vedanta Sutras. Yeah. Then he explained the meaning of the Maha Mantra, and then that leads to love of Godhead, ecstatic love of Godhead. He explained the Hare Nam Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nasteva Nasteva, Katir Anyata. In this age of Kali, there is no alternative for spiritual progress than to chant the holy names of the Lord. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further went on explaining that Shankaracharya, he gave indirect meaning to the statements of the Vedic literature. He didn't give the direct meaning. He didn't give the absolute truth, which is that Sri Krishna is the personality of Godhead. The reason Shankaracharya gave that was because he gave the impersonal commentary, because it was a temporary compromise during that time. It was not the ultimate truth. But as they say, there is always a time, place, and circumstance for everything. So Shankaracharya during that time gave the impersonal commentary. Right? But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained these 3 stages, which is very, very important for all of us to understand. Very simple, but very profound. Right? There's 3 stages. of the absolute truth, which is Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. As the name suggests, Sambandha is relationship. Whose relationship? Relationship between the Jiva and the Lord himself. Right? So relationship between us and Krishna. So we need to understand that there is a relationship. We are part and parcel of the Lord. Then Abhidheya. Abhidheya is action, acting, doing some practical devotional service. Like we saw on Sunday, amazing festival. So many devotees were engaged. The decorations, the classes, the kirtans, everything was just top-notch. Prasadam, just top-notch. So some practical devotional service as well. Prayojana. Prayojana is that stage where you attain the ultimate goal of love of God. This is prema, right? The prema stage. So after hearing all of these arguments, and they went back and forth, and seeing Lord Chaitanya's humility and the love he had for Krishna, they all became respectful. They all agreed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that way, Prakashananda Saraswati and all the others became very respectful of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they even joined him in chanting. And everyone was then singing the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the important point here is that yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu won over these Mayavadi sannyasis through some debate and through some, through some philosophy and through laying all of these points. But also the important thing is it wasn't only through these points. It was also through the humility that he showed, through the purity, and through how he discussed the essence of all the scriptures. Right? He went straight to the essence. And that was what won them over. Even in our time, we see, we come across arguments or people debating with us when you're distributing books or when we are, speaking to someone, trying to preach to someone. There is always questions being raised of why this, why that. Knowing myself, trying to give them an argument based on what our scriptures say. Yes, it's part of the solution. But the bigger thing to learn, especially a person like me, is that we need to be humble when we are discussing these things. We need to show that by character. We need to be pure. Right? We need to become pure regularly. We can see through Srila Prabhupada's example also. I mean, he converted hippies. Hippies, they are probably, there was no cleanliness, there's no conception of, what to live. There's no conception of God. There was nothing. Prabhupada also had arguments or discussions with Mayavadi sannyasis, and he was not arrogant, or he didn't sort of just dismiss them, right? Prabhupada spoke purely from his scripture, purely from the scriptures, and he had obviously the purity, and he was humble, and that's how he moved people's heart like that, right? Even these hippies, as I said, they all criticized. So many people criticized him in so many different ways, but his purity and his humility and his knowledge shone through everything. Yeah. So us too, when we sort of go out and preach, we need to keep these points in mind. And on a regular basis, on a daily basis, we need to, yes, not only be absorbed in the scriptures, but also try and develop the humility, purity within our hearts, so that when we meet, looking at us, looking at how humble we are, looking at our dealings with them, looking that we've got pure intentions in our mind. There's no envy, there's no jealousy. People see that, and eventually they will see the result of what we've been practicing, and we can win them over one day, or at least start them on their journey. So it's 7:00. If there are any questions, comments, corrections, or any additional points, please, Hare Krishna. Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining. Krishna willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a blissful day. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.